Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for Women Run. This is our first in person in a while. So I'm so glad you could be here.
Yes.
My name's Meredith Lowry. I am at Wright Lindsey Jennings. We hold Women Run to talk about things that women are encountering in business or other things for women that are considering starting a business. And so we're glad everyone could be here, and I'm glad that Angela Shirey has joined me. She's a vice president at Arkansas Capital Corp, and we're going to talk about money and finances because that's important.
Yes.
And we don't always talk about things like this when we start a business, but it's one of the basics that you've got to have. And women also approach the whole finance piece differently. So if you think you're doing things a lot differently than what maybe your brother or your father did, yes, you are, and that is not wrong. But let's start.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me there. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of my company, Arkansas Capital Corporation, based here in Little Rock. We're very excited to be part of this program with Wright Lindsey Jennings and the Venture Centers, and we're very appreciative and humbled to gather with you all this morning. So thank you.
Of course, the Venture Center is hosting us. They're wonderful partners with Women Run. We love being here with all of our friends here. So, okay, let's talk about Arkansas Capital because not everyone may be familiar with it.
Yeah.
Your lead for community development. What does that entail?
Yeah, so Arkansas Capital Corporation is a lending and finance institution here in Little Rock, Arkansas. We function very much like a bank and an investment company, but for internal investments. And our sole mission is to promote economic development across the state. So here in Central Arkansas, in Northwest Arkansas, the Delta region, and all across, we just really want to support economic and business development. We are structured as a nonprofit organization, but we operate very much like a high-functioning bank or any other sort of lending institution. And so we're able to sort of flex and meet the terms that some of our business owners need to kind of get started or to get a reboot or to just maintain their everyday mode of business. And that we're very unique in that way.
Now, my experience with Arkansas Capital before you and I met was through the Governor's Cup, because that's one thing that they do a lot with, and hosting and corralling all of the judges for tech companies that are coming out of the universities.
Yeah. Well, we like to, Governor's Cup is actually one of our signature programs. And so with us being sort of all things entrepreneur, we really want to catch the kids at a young age. I feel like I can say young kids now that I'm of age now. So I like to start them young and train them up. So yes, Governor's Cup is a long-standing program.
Okay, so financial resources for business are crucial. And let's talk about the various options for financing and where someone should go to get that type of financing.
Yeah, so business, as you said, it takes money to make money. It's always sort of like the topic that's at the top of the list for everyone I talk to. How do I access a loan? How do I, find a grant to start my business? And so it's one of the topics that is important, but I would also say that's probably not the most important. And so we can talk about that theory or that train of thought in a minute. But the question at hand this morning is financing. Where do we find it? How do we use it? Right. So, anytime you start a business, you always kind of want to know what it's going to take to start that business. And far too often, I think people automatically think about business loan. They go to a bank and get a loan. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. There are obviously other sources of funding a business, and many times, as we've seen in 2020, And in 2021, we're seeing people start their jobs, start their hustles or their gigs or, their hobbies or whatever. But I would, like to bring up a funding option that sometimes people don't really think about, and it's their full-time employment. Sometimes it's not right now, but it might be later. And so if you have a full-time job, that can actually be one of the best ways. And when I say best, that of course is objective. But sometimes it just takes, putting away some money from your job to fund that business. And of course, startup costs vary, but let's always remember that a full-time job is a way to fund a business. And I think that sometimes we don't think of it that way, but most certainly it is. So,
I love that, because that is some women tend to do that, but a lot of people, you listen to like Shark Tank and these business shows,
Yeah.
and they start talking loans and things like that. So the safe option, the stable option, I like us talking about that. Like, that's the first thing I like about it.
Yeah. And so when being very intentional about, establishing a savings account or a CD or some other mechanism to actually put aside that money so that it actually happens, I think is key. And while we're setting up these accounts to save, it's also really important to also begin to business plan. I mentioned earlier that sometimes people automatically think that funding or finance or capital is one of the most critical elements of starting a business. Well, I'll venture to say that it's actually planning that business. I think sometimes we gotta find money, but what's the plan? So I think creating a really strong game plan for now, a year from now, and maybe 5 years, just kind of depends. But I think it's really important to have short, medium, and long-term goals so that when you begin to speak to that, loan officer or financer, they will want to fund you.
And when you get the money, it's not like mad money. I'm just going to spend this on new office furniture. You have
Money
potential
everywhere.
plans.
Absolutely. Planning. So again, full-time employment is a really, I think, smart or wise way to fund a business. But then there are also other options like, friends and family, or be very careful with like savings or retirement accounts. I really wouldn't. Well, everybody's different, but it's an option, right? It's depending on your level of risk that you want to take, your calculated risks. So maybe savings accounts. There's a lot of talk now, Meredith, about venture capital.
Yes.
Venture capital. Of course, people see it or hear about it out in California or Silicon Valley, but we're actually seeing that more often here in Arkansas. We've got groups set up to kind of like select or choose or whatnot. So you can either call it venture capital, angel investors, or just going out to a coffee shop and speaking with someone who's a means and saying, hey, will you invest in my idea? And so, being a former loan officer for, I won't say the name, but for a bank and for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I know that it's really important to have those relationships with a lender or a financer or the guy who goes to your, church or your athletic club. Will you invest in my business? And that's, of course, it might come with interest. It might not.
Yeah.
So let's always too remember people down the street who can invest in your idea and your belief and invest in you.
Those relationships are key. And we've had bankers speak for Women Run, because knowing how to talk to a banker, how even just feeling like the banker is a person that you can have coffee with.
Yeah.
That's an important thing. And a lot of the financing piece seems daunting. But I'm glad you mentioned venture capital, because I have strong opinions about venture capital. But have you seen many women get venture capital? Because I know like two.
Yeah. Personally, I have seen a few. I think the amounts, can vary. I do believe that it's something that many people are just now kind of learning about. I think with the boom in 2020 of women running businesses, I feel like the topic is becoming more and more kind of discussed and put out like in social media or just in conversation groups. And so while I've not seen a ton personally, I do think that it's a growing number. I wish I had statistics and numbers and dollar amounts, but it's definitely a growing area.
Women get less, I think it's gonna be down to 1.9. It was 2% last year of all venture capital dollars. So it's not an easy thing. I mean, I would never bank on venture capital.
Yeah.
And then also of the two, one lost her company. The venture capital took over and the company's still going. And as she said for Woman Run, that it was a successful exit for her in the fact that her children have college funds, but she lost her company.
Yeah. Well, we know that every option is going to have, pros and cons, and planning in every business is different. And certainly formats like, like Women Achieve and, training from companies like Wright Lindsey Jennings, and certainly we can open up these conversations so that, scenarios like that either don't happen again or don't happen quite as frequently.
Yeah, I think she's still happy. One option that you and I talked about by email, we were talking, you mentioned credit cards.
Yeah.
And I know you have strong opinions on this.
I do. I was actually sharing with your colleague, Ricky Smith. We were talking about an article that I'd read in a magazine called Millie. And if you all have not heard of this magazine, it's wonderful. It's a magazine that's put out by Hearst Company, especially for women. And it's all things money, whether it's investing, stocks, business ideas, all things money geared towards women. And I was reading an article in a recent edition, and I was actually very surprised, but it detailed credit cards as being a funding source. Again, being a former loan officer, I cringe at credit cards. I just have personal beliefs on that, but certainly if you have the discipline to use that thing wisely, and you find one that has low interest rate and some other benefits, you can certainly use it to your advantage. But some people, go that way, some don't. I tend to don't, but it's an option. It's an option.
I mean, it has to be paid back, and granted, loans do too, but if you have a good relationship with a loan officer, you're going to have a better arrangement for that payback than a credit card company that's faceless to you. And I know certainly during the pandemic, a lot of the bankers I talked to, they were hustling to make sure their people did not default. They did not want businesses to fail. Credit cards do not feel the same way.
Yeah. 2020 was a very interesting year.
Yes.
Very interesting. I never want to say things are good or bad. It's different. It's unique. It's learning experience.
It was a learning experience.
And so I feel like during that time, I think was a time to kind of refocused. Again, we've seen a lot of women now starting businesses, getting encouraged, the confidence to try something new, something different. And so kind of going back to that credit card issue, I think it's just a matter of being disciplined and knowing how to use it, when to use it, how to plan for the business, and what really works best for you and your company and your family or whoever.
So not every business needs financing. My husband's small business, he started $200 and never once took financing other than that small saving up $200.
Yeah.
But some businesses, when they're considering this, what should they be looking at? Like, what should they think about when they're thinking, maybe I need to go talk to a bank?
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to that plan. What's the plan here? Is it time to get financing or is it time to reach out to a entrepreneur support organization, which oftentimes we call ESOs. And so you all will likely hear that, just as you move forward in this business development journey. ESOs. The Venture Center is a great option. We see our friends here from the Arkansas Small Business
Technology.
Technical Development Center, ASBTDC.
Yeah.
Here with us today, Ms. Pam Reed, she's here with us. We have so many others across this state who are so willing and open to offer advice and thoughts and resources and time. I'm a big fan of Oprah, guys. I am. And so one of her biggest sayings is time. All we need is time. And so if you can find someone to help you sort of plan for short, intermediate, and long term, kind of walk with you and hold your hand. One of the main tenets of Women Achieve, right? Just to have somebody to listen to you, to understand, to connect, to guide, and show you. And so we, you have those resources across the state, both formal networks and informal networks. And so I think, again, one of the most important things aside from financing is the time to plan and figure out what you need, how much capital you need to really get that thing started.
I'm so glad you brought up the ASBDDC because they're statewide and they're amazing. They're free. They provide market research. And to me, that's the first person you should be talking to when you're thinking about business, because they'll help with the business plan. They'll help with everything. And they kind of move you through the journey. Even if you're 3 years in, they're just one of the best ESOs around. And then also the Venture Center helps move you forward too. That ESO relationship is important.
Very key, very key. And to that point, they have offices across the state. I want to say it's maybe 6 offices or so, 11 offices across the state. And so you just have to kind of find the one that's nearest to you. But to your point, they offer marketing services, research, business plan development. And then I think in 2020, they've actually started a new line where it's more targeted and tailored toward this specific industries. And so the offerings that they have through this, state supported program, it's really great for Arkansas listeners. Yeah.
The SBA funds it. So like me, when people come to me as a patent attorney, they're just like, I don't want to talk about my invention with people because I'm afraid I have to keep it secret. The ASBDDC is one organization that I know will maintain confidentiality too, because the SBA requires it of them. And so that's the only other group that I'm like, yes, you can feel confident that they're not going to spill the beans for you. So, yeah.
And then those are just 2 that we mentioned. Certainly there are others across the state. And so I would just suggest or gently advise to kind of do just a search, talk to people. There is a guide that's going around. It's I don't know who it was produced by. I want to say Startup Junkie.
Yeah, they have one.
But it has a list of all of the ESOs across the state and kind of what their specialties are. And so if you're operating a business, either thinking of starting one, if you just started one, or if you're a veteran business owner, certainly, one of these ESOs is going to have something that's going to support you in that nick of time. And again, I would just say that business planning doesn't have to be overwhelming. We can gotta figure out, my products, my pricing, my, how am I going to display the products? Where will I display the products? How will I fund it? It can be overwhelming. It can definitely be overwhelming. And so I would say, one step at a time. It's a journey. We all want to become it'd be nice to be the Shark Tank, instant billionaire. It doesn't happen that way. It can be frustrating. It can be lonely. You could feel like I'm not making the progress because my neighbor down the street is selling stuff on Etsy and I'm not. They're all on Instagram, glamorous, and it's a personal journey. So I would say just to be patient with it,
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll also say the ESOs can help talk you through going into a bank or going in for, if you're going towards venture capital, what that pitch looks like.
Yeah.
So you feel more confident than when you do go into the bank, because I know a lot of people, when we had our banking discussions back in, I guess that was 2019, they were just like, I don't even know how to talk to her.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, she's a human, and you talk to her like that. And then, but I get that apprehension because this is our world.
Yeah.
It's not everyone's world.
Mhm.
And so finding those people to help you with that journey, walk you through, so it becomes your world.
Mhm.
Important.
Yeah, we've seen that, too, and heard it time and time again of people, they don't know, they just don't know how. And so the Kaufman Foundation does a lot of good, puts out a lot of good information in just terms of research and found or conveyed in one of their reports that just not having those relationships with bankers or the attorneys or the accountants or whomever really limits the options that women and minority businesses face because it's not routine. They didn't grow up in a family business, or they didn't go into the banks, with their dad or their mom to have a model to see. And so just kind of knowing how to, and I love the way you said, they're humans, talk, but to know what to say, I think is key. And so just doing that research, having confidence, I think often, and I can speak to me as a Black woman, minority, and I'm even left-handed, so
Totally.
how to do this stuff. You gotta have confidence and belief in yourself and the will to do the research to figure out, see, if they ask me this, what's gonna be the answer? Or if they ask me this, what should I say? So having notes or just kind of being informed will, I think, help build and boost and maintain that confidence throughout the meeting. Because if you don't have the confidence in yourself, which of course is built by knowledge and this village of women surrounding you, it might be off the map. But just being armed with information and going in and speaking to, I think really matters. It shows, you can feel it, but it also shows.
And Woman Run is also working on a workshop for next year where we actually help you with that. We're doing improv with a theater company in Fayetteville. I'm really excited about this workshop. So we haven't done workshops before. This is gonna be something new.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's talk about, you've got the money.
Mhm.
Where does the business go from there?
Yeah, wow, that's a loaded question. So you just have to follow the step in the plan, right? And so if it's investing in a someone else to support you, to help you either source products or source a space, or to figure out your marketing strategy, or to establish your entity structure, even, that money might be well used to hire an accountant and an attorney to set up your business structure so that you have that foundation. I would say it would be a very good start if that foundation is not already in place. So understanding that that's legal entity, or putting someone on retainer, or whatever that is, I would say to ensure that your foundation is set, I would say first start. And then, then going out and finding the cute hats or the cute, whatever it is that you want to sell or service that you want to provide. Figuring out, the best places to find those, and then how you display it. Say go to Walgreens and get some toothpaste for the pictures, because it's gonna be smiling and happy because you started. So go by Walgreens and get ready to smile.
I love that you say accountant and attorney. When it comes to those, not everyone has that person in their network. So when you're looking for that person, I would always say you find one that you can talk to. But when you get the money too from the bank, it is not a bad thing to turn to your banker and say, who would you recommend? I mean, they're not gonna have a problem telling you that. They're gonna be very open and say, well, these are people that you might want to try for. And they're trusted, the bank trusts them for them to be recommended. Is sometimes just because they have a bar license or their accountant, that doesn't mean they're necessarily the right person for you. They may just do everyone's taxes yearly or do divorces. They're not really doing business work. So where else would you recommend people find banker or accountants?
Yeah, well, I always think for things like that, word of mouth thing is great. We can go online and get names, but not to say that that's not a good way, but unless you really know, or for me personally at least, unless I kind of understand their history of working with a particular type of business or even a particular type of person. I mean, we can hope for the best, but sometimes reality is reality. And so just understanding it that, accountant or attorney or whoever works best with this type of person, or even just you as an individual, I think matters. And word of mouth, I think is great.
So after you've done all the smiling and all the selling, then comes the scaling. So again, worth doing another session about scaling soon, but the financial part of scaling, that's one thing where people are just like, okay, what does that look like? What do I need?
Yeah, I feel like too, just like venture capital, that is another topic that we're hearing a lot lately is scale. And so I think having the ability to produce at the same cost, but at a higher or quicker rate, I think is key. Depending on the stage a person is in their business, I would say be careful and try to take it to scale if you really, or business owner really understands and has a firm grasp of, what does it take for you to disperse break even. But then as we grow and become more confident and you have a good customer base and relationships with your suppliers or with whomever, I would say that to go slow enough to not scale too fast. But certainly there are ways that can be done, and I think it's just monitoring your expenses, your costs, I think that's probably an advanced topic, but certainly important as we think about longevity and profitability, growing to scale. I think that's something that we should keep in mind and shoot for.
When I hear, there's the businesses that talk about scaling that are like, I'm pre-revenue and I suddenly have 75 employees. And okay. But then most of the companies I hear from that are women-based, it is not, I have 75 employees. It's like, I am working 8 hours at my normal job and then 8 hours at my side hustle. I'm just trying to figure out another employee. Can I afford another employee? And so scaling also looks so differently for different businesses. And again, I think it comes down to that balance sheet and actually understanding what finances are coming in, what is this going to do? Because sometimes hiring that one other person and having that accountant say, okay, it's going to cost you this to have that person, you suddenly maximize what you do better so much faster than, and I know we have 3 employees and for our business, and it's shocking watching how much that grows when you add another person, when you're ready to do it. And that's a sound decision.
Yeah, the human resource piece we hadn't really talked about yet. And again, it just depends on the size of your business and the nature of your business. If you have HR, but definitely as you begin to hire employees, you kind of got to know labor rules and hiring and firing and benefits and all these fun and wonderful things, which I think Wright Lindsey Jennings would be, a great source to likely advise.
Not me, that is not my job. I know people, but no, that is not me.
Sure, just another element of business development and business planning, working with people.
So I'm gonna open up for questions here in a minute, but what's something I haven't asked you that you think is important for all businesses?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question, and I might save it into about 3 or 5.
Do we have questions? I am always full of questions. Oh, Becky says there's a question.
Okay, this is from the Zoom attendees. And this
Okay.
is Aria. And we may have already got this, but let's just restate it just in case we haven't. What if you want to start a business now? What are the best options or good places to find small business grants?
I love the question. I've heard it 2 million times, if not more. I think there's yes, sometimes grants do exist. Sometimes they don't. I think we're seeing it more and more now. From 2020, we're seeing, more grants being made by foundations and corporations to support businesses. So they do exist. I don't think they are as available. I think as people
Think they are.
I remember back in like it was either the 90s or the early 2000s. There was this infomercial, and I think y'all know what I'm talking about. It's a guy running around with question marks on his suit. I'm the grant guy. You're also an entrepreneur selling a book, and so they exist, but I think that it's kind of hard to find those, but definitely don't give up on searching for them. But just know that it's not, I want to start a business, so I'm gonna get a grant.
That
Yes, it is.
commercial is the bane of my existence. Because people would have been coming in for 20 years asking me about that. And it's just like, that it's really rare to find a grant. And my 2 cents would be to work on the business plan and go find an SBA loan before you spend all that time hunting for grants, unless you really that helps get you to sleep at night and you can play on your phone for 15 minutes hunting for a grant every night.
Yeah, and they do exist, but usually, or often I'll say, they're for nonprofit organizations. Because of, laws with 501c3s, usually grants are made to nonprofit organizations that might support for-profit operations. But just as a rule of thumb, they're generally made to nonprofits and not for-profits. And again, it's not saying they don't exist. They'll just kind of be few and far in between.
Amy.
You talked about different options when it comes to financing. So I'm an entrepreneur, and when do I call Arkansas Capital Corp? I mean, like, what is my option when it comes to your organization?
Sure. So Arkansas Capital Corporation, we have an in-house lending team, and again, we function very much like a bank, although we're a nonprofit organization. And so we work with startup businesses, mature businesses, in all sorts of industries. And so it could be a daycare, it could be anything, right? So at any point that you're thinking that you're ready for financing in terms of a loan, certainly our lenders are there to answer questions and to work with you to fund that business. And so at any point, we'd be glad to have a conversation with you. And if it looks like that, you're not quite ready for that loan, we might refer you to some of our partners who could talk to you about what your needs are at that point. But at any point, you've got questions, or you think you're ready, or maybe you've been denied by another bank or another CDFI, certainly give us a call. Again, it's Arkansas Capital Corporation. We're based here downtown Little Rock, and our lending team would be more than happy to talk to you and to see where you are in terms of your needs.
I have another question.
Okay.
All right. So suppose you're at capacity with your full-time job and running your side business, and the profit from the small business isn't enough yet with the day job, but you don't have time to take on more orders or clients. It's that that hard position. So what do you see as the next move for somebody in that role, in that spot?
So my first thought, or my first answer, was to pray. So I feel like that person sounds like they are at a definite
Breaking point.
this point of where they need to make a decision. If their business is growing or maybe scaling, I think that there's a specific definition for scaling. So I'm just going to use the term growth. So you're at a point of business growth where it could be you're to the point of being a full-fledged business owner, right? And so I think it's a matter of really looking at your finances and determining the balance. With me quitting my job and devoting more time to this business is going to propel it to the next stage, or is it time to hire somebody to work on your behalf when you're not there? Is it going to pay for itself? And so I think that person's at a stage where it's time to make some crucial decisions for the next step in their growth as an entrepreneur and for the next phase of that business development and business growth. But it definitely sounds like a good problem to have. And I think it's a very exciting time. And so kudos and congratulations to the person that's at that point to make that decision.
I would say too, not all hiring is an employee. Some things are just outsourcing to a contractor or another business. So I would say go talk to the ASBTDC, because they're going to be able to look at your business and say, you've been doing all this social media. Stop doing that, pay someone to do it, and use that time that you are now saving to do more of your business. So you're maximizing your time without taking on that liability of an employee. But it's also a relationship that you can always, if it's not working with the social media part, you can stop that. But yeah, congrats. I don't know, Angela. I mean, sounds like a breaking point, but it's a good place to be at.
I have a question. Okay, like, we trying to start a nonprofit organization for like different type of abuse, all type of abuse. And I would like to, from you guys, like, have what you started out.
A nonprofit organization? Yep, so I would say just the same way that you would a regular business. What I've found is over my career, I've done both nonprofit and for-profit. And I think that the through line, or the thing that links it all, is it's all going back to organizational development, whether it's for-profit, whether it's nonprofit. You can be a traditional entrepreneur, or you can be a social entrepreneur. It still is going to be an entrepreneur. You just have an adjective in front of it. Social entrepreneur. And so I would say the way to start is the same as any business. Planning is key. Now, the difference is going to be the way you set up or structure the business. And of course, attorneys would help you, or you could do it yourself, or you could, hire or have help through, a law office or whatever. Because the way that you structure the IRS is going to be different. The way you get funding will be different. So you might apply for grants or a loan or other financing options. But just in terms of getting it started, it's going to be the same. What do you want to, what service do you want to provide? What's going to be your geography? Who's going to help you? What's the program? So it's really the same as a for-profit. You just to be a social entrepreneur.
And the environment or like the ecosystem for business is there. It's also there for nonprofits. There's a nonprofit alliance, at least in Northwest Arkansas. I think it's statewide. And so being in touch with your counterparts that are further down that journey would be important for you as well. Good luck.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
You recommend, well, I was thinking that we have a business, and he recommended, they carry opposed to a business plan.
Lean canvas.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of that nowadays. I think, I don't know, Meredith, what are your thoughts on? I've heard both ways.
Becky's giving a thumbs up. I think Lean Canvas has its pluses. I think in some ways it's very rigid, and which is one of its pluses, but it also, to me, is vexing. It is not the way like with Woman Run, we have a business plan. I did not use Lean Canvas. I do not think that way. And so I think there's opportunities for other methods as well. But in just finding what works for you, I would try it. I mean, it certainly does make you look at the bad sides of what you're considering a lot more intensely than other versions.
Not only, but also if and, I mean, half a dozen, just so. We just have opinions. I mean, disclaimer, I'm just a person, so.
Do you like Lean Canvas?
I tend to go the traditional route. Yeah, I tend to go the traditional route.
Yeah. We're clearly.
There's a place for both.
Lean Canvas.
There's a place for both.
There is a place for both. I don't know many women that have used Lean Canvas. I don't know what that says, but.
As Mimi said, there's a place for both.
Okay, so I think it's right at 9. I want to be respectful for everyone's time. Angela is at Arkansas Capital Corporation. So I think can we put her email address?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Okay, it's A Shirey, so ASHIREY @arcapital.com.
That way, if you need a connection with Arkansas Capital to either talk to a loan person or other questions, you've got Angela there. And thank you everyone for joining us. We'll have more Woman Run in 20. I guess we have one in December too. The date yet to be announced. And then we'll keep having events near the Venture Center and probably on Zoom as well.
Well, thank you again, Meredith, for having me, and thank you to Mimi San Pedro and Mr. Wayne Miller, Annalise Armstrong at the Venture Center for having me and for hosting us. It's been great. Thank you.